Welcome to Read Aloud with Mr. Paul. I'm so glad you could be here. Be sure to subscribe so you won't miss a single story.
Today we'll be reading The Little Mermaid from an illustrated treasury of Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales, illustrated by Anastasia Arkhipova. The Little Mermaid. Deep in the ocean, where the water is as blue as the prettiest cornflower and as clear as crystal, lies the kingdom of the Sea King. The Sea King had 6 daughters. The youngest of these sea princesses was the prettiest, with skin as delicate as a rose leaf and eyes as blue as the sea. The Sea King's castle was made of coral and of shells that opened and closed as the water flowed over them. In each shell was a glittering pearl. Around the castle was a beautiful garden with bright red and dark blue flowers and waving leaves and stems. The Sea King's wife had died, so the princess's old wise grandmother looked after them. They were very happy, playing all day long in the great halls of the castle, or among the living flowers of the sea. Fish swam up and ate from their hands and let the princesses stroke them. Each princess had her own little garden. The youngest grew flowers as red as the sunset in hers. She also had a beautiful marble statue of a handsome boy. It had fallen to the bottom of the sea from a shipwreck, and the princess liked it very much. She planted a red weeping willow tree by the statue, and it grew quickly until its fiery branches hung down almost to the sand. Most of all, the Little Mermaid loved hearing about the world above the sea. She asked her grandmother to tell her everything she knew about ships and towns, people and animals. Many nights, the little sea princess sat by her open window, looking up through the dark blue water. She could see the moon and stars shining faintly. "When you are 15, said her grandmother, you'll be allowed to swim to the surface and sit on the rocks in the moonlight." The Little Mermaid's oldest sister turned 15 and swam up to the surface of the ocean. When she came back, she talked about hundreds of things. "The most beautiful feeling," she whispered, "is lying on a sandbank in the moonlight, in the quiet sea, watching the lights of a nearby town twinkling like stars." A year later, her second sister was allowed to swim up. "The most beautiful thing," she whispered, "is the sunset." The third sister followed. She was the boldest and swam up a river to watch a group of children without fishtails playing in the water. The fourth sister was more timid and remained in the sea, but said the sky above was beautiful, like a bell of glass. The fifth sister had a winter birthday. When she swam up, she found icebergs glittering like green diamonds. Finally, the Little Mermaid was 15. Her grandmother gave her a garland of lilies for her hair, and she rose as lightly as a bubble to the surface of the ocean. A large ship with 3 masts lay nearby, not moving. The Little Mermaid could hear music and singing, and hundreds of colored lanterns were lit on deck. Suddenly, fireworks exploded in the air, flashing and banging. The Little Mermaid had never seen such a thing before. It looked as if all the stars of heaven were falling around her. She swam closer and looked in through a low window at the well-dressed people inside. She saw a young prince with large black eyes, the most beautiful person of all. It was his 16th birthday party. He smiled at his guests, and the little princess couldn't take her eyes off him. After a while, the sky grew dark and heavy clouds rolled in. A terrible storm came. Waves rose up as high as mountains, and before long, the ship gave way under the power of the sea. The main mast snapped like a twig. The ship rolled onto its side, and the water rushed in. The Little Mermaid dived into the deep waters, rising and falling with the waves, searching desperately for the beautiful prince. She found him floating, his dark eyes closed and his arms and legs still. He was nearly drowned. The little mermaid held his head above the water and let the waves carry them in to shore. As they came towards the land, the little mermaid saw a small sandy bay below a convent. She swam to the beach with the handsome prince and laid him on the fine white sand in the warm sunshine. She swam back out to sea and watched and waited. Soon a girl came out of the convent and ran to the prince. She saw him sit up slowly and smile at the girl, and she was so glad he was alive. But the prince didn't see the little mermaid, and he didn't smile at her. He didn't know that she had rescued him, and once he was led away to shelter in the convent, this made her very sad. The little mermaid went back often to the sandy bay, but she never saw the prince. In the end, she was so sad that she told her sisters what had happened, and 2 of them said they knew where the prince's palace was. The 6 sisters swam there together. The palace was made of bright yellow stone and had long flights of steps reaching right down to the sea. Now she knew where he lived. The little mermaid spent many nights in the water nearby. On each visit, the little mermaid swam closer and closer to the shore. One night, she went right up to a marble balcony overlooking the water. The prince was there, looking out to sea in the bright moonlight. But he didn't see her. He thought he was quite alone. She felt glad again that she had saved his life, and remembered how he had felt in her arms. The little mermaid wanted to know more and more about human beings. She went to her grandmother. "Grandmother, if human beings don't drown, can they live forever?" she asked. "They die just like us," replied her grandmother. "We live longer, but when we die, we become white foam on the surface of the water. When human beings die, their soul lives forever and rises up to the stars." "How can I get a soul?" asked the little mermaid. "I'd happily swap hundreds of years of life to be a human being for just one day." Her grandmother sighed. "The only way to get a human soul is if a human falls in love with you. But that won't happen, because they think our beautiful fishtails are ugly." That night, there was a ball at the Sea King's castle. The ballroom was made of transparent crystal. The mermaids and mermen danced to their own beautiful singing. The little mermaid had the loveliest voice of all, and the whole court applauded her. For a moment, she felt happy. But then she remembered her prince. "I'll never be happy without a human soul," she thought. "I will go and see the Sea Witch. I'm afraid of her, but perhaps she can help me." She left her sisters dancing in the castle and swam out beyond the foaming whirlpools. The Sea Witch lived in the middle of a strange, dark, underwater forest, where grasping trees and gloomy flowers held tight to things that had floated down. Oars and rudders, metal chests, and human skeletons. The little mermaid was frightened, but she thought of the prince and went on. In the Sea Witch's lair, water snakes slithered all over the sand. The Sea Witch allowed toads to eat from her mouth. "So," she cackled, "you want to swap your own tail for stumpy legs so the prince will fall in love with you? This is very stupid. It will make you unhappy, but very well. Drink the potion I will make for you, and you will have legs. You will walk and dance gracefully, but every step you take will feel like you're treading on sharp knives. And," she continued harshly, "you will never be a mermaid again, and will never return to your father's castle. If the prince doesn't fall in love with you, if he marries another, your heart will break, and then you will become just foam on the waves." The little mermaid was pale with fear, but said, "I will do it." "My price for the potion," smiled the witch slyly, "is your lovely singing voice. Let me cut out your tongue!" How will the prince fall in love with me if I can't speak or sing?" gasped the little mermaid.
You will have your elegant dancing and your lovely eyes,
said the witch with spite. The little mermaid agreed to the price. The witch brewed her a potion and cut out her tongue, taking her voice. The little mermaid swam to the prince's palace on the shore, left the sea, and drank the magic potion, and fell down as if she was dead. When the sun rose, the handsome young prince was standing over her. He looked at her so earnestly, and she became aware that her fish's tail was gone. Instead, she had pretty legs and feet. The prince helped her up. "Who are you?" asked the prince kindly. But the little mermaid couldn't answer him. She couldn't say anything, for she had no voice. He put out his hand, and she followed, though every step felt like treading on knives. He took her into the palace, and soon she was dressed in silk and muslin. When the palace musicians played, the little mermaid danced beautifully. Everyone was enchanted, especially the prince, but each step felt sharp and terrible to her. When the little mermaid felt lonely at night, she would go to the edge of the sea and call out to her sisters who bobbed in the water. She missed them very much, but she was happy that she could see the prince every day. Time passed. The little mermaid and the prince went everywhere together. But though the little mermaid loved the prince more and more, he thought of her only with fondness. "You are special to me," he said to her, "because you remind me of a young convent girl I met once. I was in a ship that was wrecked, and the waves cast me ashore near a convent. The young girl found me and saved my life. She's the only one I could love, but I cannot take her from the convent." "Ah, he does not know who truly saved his life," thought the little mermaid, and this made her sad. One day, the prince came to her with some news. "We're going on a sea voyage," he exclaimed. "It's time for me to get married, and my parents have arranged a wedding with the king's daughter." The little mermaid couldn't say anything, but she felt sadder than ever. It was a fine ship, and lots of people traveled with them. The prince was nervous. "I don't think I can love this princess," he said to the little mermaid. "I still love the convent girl, and if I can't have her, I would rather marry you, my quiet friend." The little mermaid's heart leapt. Perhaps the prince would fall in love with her after all. The next morning, they arrived at a grand harbor. Church bells were ringing, and trumpets were sounding. The prince held his breath, and the little mermaid did too. All at once, the prince shouted out. He had seen his bride, and it was the girl from the convent. "It's you!" he cried, laughing and folding the girl in his arms. "You who saved me." But the little mermaid felt her heart breaking. After the wedding, everyone went back to the ship for a celebration with dancing and singing. The little mermaid left the happy crowd. She leaned on the ship's rail and looked across the water. She knew that, as the sea witch had said, with the sunrise she would become just foam on the waves. Her sisters came and swam below her. Their long hair had been cut off. "We have given the sea witch our hair," they said, "in exchange for this knife. Kill the prince with this knife, and when his blood drips on your feet, they will turn back into a tail and you will be a mermaid again. Hurry, do it before sunrise. Return to us. Either you or he must die." The prince was asleep with his new bride. The little mermaid pulled back the crimson curtain around their bed. She bent down and kissed his head. The sky was growing lighter. The sun would soon appear. She lifted the knife above the prince and trembled. She could hear her sister's words. "Either you or he must die. Either you or he must die." She took a breath and then threw the knife with all her strength over the ship's rail into the water. The first rays of sunlight cut across the waves, and the little mermaid dived into the sea. It seemed she was dissolving into simple white foam, as she had known she must. But then, she felt different. Instead of becoming foam, she rose through the air towards the dawn stars. She blew kisses to the sleeping prince and his bride. She didn't have a human soul, but something of her goodness lived on in the sparkling sunlight above the sea.
What do we notice about this story?
The thing that stands out to me is the ending, and how different it is from a certain very famous version of this story that you might have seen. I watched the 1989 Disney animated movie many times when I was a kid and enjoyed it very much. As I am making this video, a new version is scheduled for release in spring 2023. And many people are already very excited about it. As you probably remember, the animated Little Mermaid has a happy ending. Everything works out for Ariel. She overcomes all her problems and achieves her goal of finding true love with Prince Eric. But in the version we read today, the Little Mermaid dies at the end, which is definitely not a happy ending. Though the sadness of the story's ending is lessened somewhat when part of her lives on in the sparkling sunlight. So the mermaid gets something in the end, but she doesn't achieve her goals of experiencing true love with the prince or gaining a human soul. So why the difference? Why did the movie get a happy ending with all problems resolved, and the original story got a sad ending, or at best, an ending that's bittersweet? I think there are several reasons for this. First, the people who made the movie in 1989, here are the directors and the lead voice actress, know that happy endings are popular. The audience likes them. This means people will buy more tickets to see a movie with a happy ending. And they'll buy more toys made from a movie with a happy ending. And ultimately, movies with happy endings usually earn more money than sad movies do. Furthermore, the movie is American. And American culture tends to be hopeful and optimistic. Americans like to believe that in the end, things always turn out for the best. And if we wish really hard, and try really hard, and work really hard, our dreams will come true. However, the original story was not written by an American. Hans Christian Andersen was from Denmark, and he lived long ago. The Little Mermaid was first published in 1837. I am not an expert on Danish culture from 200 years ago, but I'm guessing the values of that place and time were different than the optimistic, upbeat America of 1989 when the Disney movie came out. Hans Christian Andersen himself is famous for writing stories that mix happiness with sadness, like The Little Match Girl, or The Steadfast Tin Soldier. It seems to me that Andersen's Little Mermaid is someone who wishes really hard, and tries really hard, and works really hard, but her dream doesn't come true. Is real life like that sometimes? Yes, it often is. I've had some of my dreams come true, and I'm grateful for that. While other dreams that I've wished really hard and tried really hard and worked really hard for never did happen for me. That's life. Is it important for stories to tell us true things about life? I think so. So on the one hand, the Disney version makes me happy every time I see it, and inspires me to be a dreamer like Ariel. On the other hand, I appreciate Andersen's original for daring to show something that may be more true more of the time for more people. Sometimes I want entertainment and escape, and other times I want to know what life is really like. I think both versions of The Little Mermaid are valuable. What do you think? Talk about it with the nearest grown-up. I bet that will be an interesting conversation.
Thank you so much for joining me for Read Aloud with Mr. Paul. Until next time, discover the wonder in a book. Pick one up. Take a look.
If you enjoyed this Read Aloud with Mr. Paul, please like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Thanks again.